in order to celebrate our 10-year birthday, we wanted to bring some of the biggest names in the institutional investment world here to address this conference. And we are delighted to say that we have probably the biggest one in the world right now. It's our pleasure to introduce and to invite up onto stage Hiromichi Mizuno, better known to many as Hiro, Hiro by name, maybe Hiro by nature. It's great. Just while Hiro's getting settled, for those who don't know, and I'm sure many of you do, Hiro is the Executive Managing Director and Chief Investment Officer of the Government Pension Investment Fund in Japan, running a trivial and inconsequential $1.3 trillion in assets, which must be some hell of a responsibility, Hiro. We'll come back to that shortly. Hiro has an incredible track record in the institutional investment world. Latterly at Hiroshima Innovation Network, previously a partner at Collar Capital. He's been sort of across the investment and corporate world in senior positions for many years. But beyond that, he also has a sort of a list of incredible entities that he heads up, both in Japan and internationally. I'll just mention a couple. He's executive advisor to the Japanese cabinet on healthcare and medical promotion strategy, a member of the Japanese government Strategic Funds Integrated Advisory Board, co-chair of the Milken Institute's Global Capital Markets Advisory Council, but most importantly, above and beyond all that, he is, since November last year, a member of the UNPRI Asset Owner Advisory Committee. Great to have Hiro here. I just wanted to start off maybe by coming back to that issue, with that point of you, Hiro, as running, being responsible for 1.3 trillion in assets. Can you talk to us a bit about the challenges that you've had since coming to that position? Incredibly important, high-profile job. Talk to us about what it was like going through the door and looking at the investments you make, and then about how your thinking around ESG has evolved in that position.
Sure, thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank Tony and Hugh and all RI staff for giving me this opportunity to talk to these responsible audience. So I assume that people who hasn't registered for this conference are irresponsible investors, I guess.
You're absolutely right here.
And congratulations for your 10th anniversary. It's my honor to be with you this morning. I took up this position about 2.5 years ago and to become a CIO of GPIF. When I became a CIO, I had zero interest in these ESG things because I was not aware that there's a lot of initiatives happening in the investment community. Although, my previous the fund was the signatory of the PRI, but I was less interested. But my sort of formative experience happened when I was speaking at the Milken Institute conference in Los Angeles, 2 or 3 months after I became a CIO. I was on a panel with the other CIO of U.S. public pension funds. And all of a sudden, moderator asked me a question, what do you think about ESG? So I need to answer that. But I didn't pay any attention to or didn't spend my time trying to understand what's happening in the field of ESG. So I just responded out of my common sense. I said, I just see no point in our grandchildren will receive pension benefit in a world they cannot play outside. That's what I said. And then the 2 people on the panel responded quite sort of offensively to me and said, oh, Hiro, but it's not our job to pay, to save the world. And I said, why? Because we are CEO of the public pension fund. And then I responded, you sound like an American football player. You only pay attention to your own role. I play rugby, which you have to pay attention to how the whole system works. So that's how I started. So when I came back home, I started my discussion with our regulator and our own team, and also our investment advisory committee, who is a kind of equivalent of trustee board. And the initial reaction is the same. Mr. Mizuno, it's against your fiduciary duty to think about or pay attention to all those social and environmental issues. And I also started asking the asset managers the same thing. Now, I here had a mixed opinion, but in the end, I asked them the question, what would you react when you engage with the CEO of your portfolio company, and that CEO says, Mr. Shareholder, all I'm concerned about is how to make you richer. I have no concern about how much pollution I'm making, how much social damage I'm making in this society. I don't care, but I'm focusing on to make your shareholder value higher. How would you react to that? And everybody said, I feel very uncomfortable. And I said, why do you don't apply that concept to yourself? So then I just determined, I'm just going to fight against the concept of chief investment officer of public pension have to think about the only monetary return all the time. So that's how I started.
What was the response to thinking around this subject in Japan? Because it's developed over recent years it's actually developed very quickly as a very important concept. But you were kind of on the cusp of both reflecting that and then obviously promoting.
I tell you why we've been kind of quick to catch up with the other countries, and you probably see that how quickly the GPIF adapted to that, and the Japanese investment community or business community is reacting to our initiative. When we started this conversation, I actually felt that all the values being discussed at RI conference or PRI are actually the social values I have grown up with. So the Japanese society is probably the most inclusive and sustainable society among developed nations. But how come we are behind the curve in terms of promoting this in our investment community? So I started challenging them why you are afraid of adopting ESG concept or becoming a signatory of PRI, which I started in my initial initiative. And what I felt is that there's a sort of frustration among Japanese people about, particularly British, you're very good at making the rules and make it sound like you have been a champion of that for the last 100 years. Okay?
That's been our specialty.
Yes, that's your specialty. And among Japanese people, they felt a bit, frustrated, although a lot of these values being discussed and being put in these principles has been built in our social system. But we just felt, treated like we are behind them. So there is a sort of resentment to adopt the rules set up by the people, in their opinion, who have just started doing that kind of things. So what I said to them is, why are you afraid of that? If you think we are ahead of the time in terms of sustainability and inclusiveness. Also, Japanese companies has a multi-stakeholder model to begin with. Only the problem is, it's a multi-stakeholder model, but they paid little attention to shareholders' value. But that's another problem. So I said, if we think really, Japanese society has been taking those values in our social system over the last 100 years, we'll be a champion, even in playing the rules set by somebody else.
So why don't we talk about that in a second, actually, because you make an interesting point there, that in the UK we created the Stewardship Code.
Yeah.
But in my view, in Japan, you actually applied the Stewardship Code and are doing perhaps more application than we are in some sense in the UK. I may be being slightly unfair there, but I think there's a lot happening in Japan.
No, we are a third company who implemented Stewardship Code and Corporate Governance Code after UK, South Africa, I think. And then I don't think it's not accidental, or it's not a coincidence. At the time, Japan started promoting stewardship and corporate governance trying to make sure that the company pays more attention to the value of shareholders. Other initiatives started in the Western world, trying to push your model more towards multi-stakeholder and a more sustainability-focused business model. It's actually happening at the same time. The multi-stakeholder model is our model always. But the problem is we paid too much attention to the employees' interest, or sometimes too much to the local society, but they paid very little attention to stakeholders. So the way I see it is, coincidentally maybe, but probably not, that the Western world, after Lehman crisis, they realized that capitalism is not working well. So they just wanted to improve it. So that they came up with a lot of initiatives like PRI, RI, or like inclusive capitalism. They're all the movement pushing the capitalism towards a multi-stakeholder, long-term sustainable framework. And at the same time, Japan has been sitting in the world of comfortable sustainability. We are just trying to urge the company to more sensitive to the shareholders' value. So we are actually approaching toward the same goal from the different direction. So I actually received that question a lot, because when we are urging Japanese corporation to adopt the corporate governance code, we are stepping up to become a more sort of active steward. We also trying to be on the board with you guys, trying to push the global system towards the value in the middle. And I think it is very relevant to GPIF to pay attention to what's happening as a whole. Because when I become a CIO, believe or not, 75% of our portfolio, $1.4 trillion, was in Japanese government bond. Now we have 50% in equity, 40% in foreign, securities. So we are very globally diversified. We have 5,000 companies in our portfolio, and a majority of that, given our size, we have to manage it passively. So we are textbook definition of universal owner, and this is, again, if you believe it or not, we are designed as a part of Japanese government 100 years sustainable public pension scheme. And our investment time horizon is 25 years. So I found it's much easier to agree with the people that ESG factors are long-term risk factors. So for us, taking the ESG as a risk factor into our investment analysis or decision or process is totally natural. And sorry.
I was just interested in how maybe to just get a little bit more of a practical feeling for what that means, Hiro. So you mentioned the stewardship and corporate governance developments in Japan, which have been very interesting. I'd really like to know what difference you see on the ground there between shareholders and corporates in Japan. What's changed there, and what it means for you practically as a shareholder yourself. What instructions do you give to your asset managers, and where are you on the developments around declaring how you vote, engagement, those kind of issues, which are at the heart of the Japanese stewardship code?
Yeah, one thing which is unique to us, unlike the other big asset owner, we are legally prohibited from directly owning the companies because of the concern across the Japanese public. The public pension becomes too influential because we own about 7-8% of Japanese companies, right? So the people are concerned about the GPIF becoming too influential. So we have indirect ownership of Japanese companies. So all our stewardship activities focusing on how we approach asset managers and index vendors, and even including a proxy vote, voting advisory, who consists of the system we own. So rather than we are asking the Japanese corporation to change their attitude, we approach the other asset manager to then change their attitude. So one good example is we hope and we expect the Japanese corporate will improve their corporate governance. That's exactly what many of you have been demanding over the last few years. And rather than that we ask the Japanese corporation to improve their government, what we are doing is we ask the asset managers to improve their corporate governance. Because I think they have to have best-in-class corporate governance before they ask their portfolio company to improve their corporate governance. But I don't know how many of you paid enough attention to how good the corporate governance is of asset managers. I'm not very satisfied so far. So we have been making a lot of statement about the corporate governance asset manager.
So unless you see best practice, you're not going to hire asset managers that you don't consider to have best practice corporate governance, is that?
Well, what we said in our public report is that you will receive smaller check.
That's a way of concentrating the mind. Oh,
right.
okay.
So, and it happened. And some of the asset manager, which we didn't satisfy us in terms of their quality of corporate governance, they received smaller check this year. And the other thing is that we paid not enough attention to. I mean, there are some sponsors on the screen, but how the index vendor operates. Because we had a big debate about our holding of the cluster bombing, bomb manufacturer. And, we are pointed out by some NGO in Norwegian region why we hold the cluster bomb manufacturer in our portfolio while we advocate for ESG. And I tried to debate to take that out, but I was told by our regulator that it's actually unlawful for me to take one company out, because that there's all our GPIF law is built upon on the perception that the GPIF shouldn't be too influential on individual business. So the way I responded to that is, fine, I cannot do anything unlawful, but my question is, why I have to be super accountable to take one company out when we pay no attention to how index vendor in the first place put that in their index? So sometimes the index vendors, they have much more influence than CIO of the public pension fund, what our pensioners ended up holding. So we work with them and it's trying to find out how they worked out. So the one thing which, if you think GPIF's approach has been creative, is that we just don't have many tools which you might have, rather than just exercising proxy vote directly to reflect your view. So we decided to approach the system to make a system consistent. And when we talk about the long-termism at the Japanese corporations, we demand the asset manager to have the long-termism for their own operation. So the consistency of the system is just a key element, in my opinion, to make these things happen. It's not achievable when there's an inconsistency through the chain. At one place, some people talking about the others, and so that's constant.
Maybe just to have a little bit of detail again there, Hiro. So you're just very briefly, what do you expect from asset managers for good corporate governance? What are the 2 or 3 things that you want asset managers to do to demonstrate both good corporate governance and long-termism? Because people in this room will say, okay, we know what you're asking broadly for, but what does it mean in real kind of granular details? Well,
we just recently released our stewardship activity principle and a proxy voting guideline, and we are waiting for English translation. But we had the same discussion like you just raised. How many specifics we want to put in that principle? And we are under pressure by, including our own asset managers. They want us to give much explicit, much clearer guideline what we want. My response to that is, how much more salary you are paid than asset owner? Isn't that your job to think about it? Right. So what do we put?
They give you an answer to that.
Yeah. So what we put in the principle is, we just said, for significant ESG issues, we expect the asset manager to engage with the company, but we refuse to list which we think are significant. Because this is my view. The difficulty of managing this investment chain, the investment chain starts from asset owner, an asset manager, and their portfolio companies. To be very, honest, 80% of the performance, which is relevant to the pensioners, are determined by policy asset mix, which is usually determined by the board. And some pension funds are lucky enough to have a very professional board members, but most of the public pension fund or asset owner, their board are non-investment professional, right? So they are not paid much anyway. And those people make a critical and a most relevant decision for the pensioners, while asset managers who are paid much better, and they are working to create minimum alpha, which is not meaningful to the other pensioners in the end. But those are the people who are paid the most, and they have the best concentration of intelligence. I don't think that's a very good system, but I have to be realistic. That's the situation. So we keep asking asset managers, you have the talents and you have a resource, you have, the system to find out what is suitable for long-term investor. So what we keep telling the asset managers is, you have to be aware, as the biggest customer to the industry, we are now requesting asset manager to manage our money having these long-term, ESG factor in mind. And it's not my job to tell you how, because I'm a customer. When you use the iPhone, do you tell Apple exactly what you want in advance? You don't. It's the Apple job to tell you, this is the function I want you to pay for £1,000. So I've been telling the asset manager, you have to come up with which you think is the best way to serve your customers' needs, which is we want long-term sustainable return from our asset. Yeah.
So you're a big challenge there for the asset management world to justify their fees and salary by coming to you with ideas about how to do long-term sustainable investment.
We just keep asking them. I mean, we are very, very keen to hear the new ideas or even a new business model of asset management which serves for customer need.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you just a couple of details, but you've been doing some equity indices work. I think that's a mandate that's out in the market at the moment. Where are you on the progress of that? I know.
We have been selecting the ESG indices for Japanese equities and some of the index vendors in this room. We are trying to promote ESG investment in the Japanese equity market. And we actually found it a disappointing result of ESG scores of Japanese companies. It was almost shockingly low. And it doesn't really, just in line with how I view Japanese, the companies. They have been more environmentally conscious for the, long time. So we just decided by promoting ESG index, Japanese companies will understand how they are evaluated, how they are scored. So all the new ESG index we are going to sponsor or we are going to back. We are going to back with meaningful check. And to promote, one, the corporate governance code, all those kind of things, is a kind of like a stick to their corporation. We are telling them to tighten their business operation. They need a carrot too. So we just want to make sure that the money goes into the company who has been serious about ESG. That's one purpose. The second purpose is we've been demanding index vendors, ESG researchers, to disclose their methodology book so that the company will know what the information they are looking for. Because I'm tired of hearing one side who evaluate the company's ESG score saying they just not good or they just don't disclose the information. I hear the same. I hear totally opposite from corporations saying they just don't know what information the ESG researchers are looking for. So by our sponsoring ESG, we're just trying to fill the gap so that there's no information issues, and the people will know what the value we are, they're searching. So hopefully that will change the investors' attitude a little bit.
Vitally important work. Last question here. I wanted just to see if I could get you to tie up some of the big international themes at the moment, and maybe we can start with the biggest international theme right now, Donald Trump, and the withdrawal or the proposed, I'm not sure if you can call it a withdrawal, it's kind of half in, half out of the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and then maybe how you align yourself with international developments like the Sustainable Development Goals out of the United Nations. Can you give us a sort of flavour for Trump and then aligning yourself as a fund with some of these big UN proposals?
Sure. It isn't the first time, is it? They withdrew from Kyoto Protocol.
Yeah, you have experience.
Okay, so we have experience.
Yeah.
But the difference between the time they withdrew from Kyoto Protocol and this time is there's a much more domestic awareness about this withdrawal. I don't know how many American people were aware when they withdrew from Kyoto Protocol, but this time awareness is very high. That's the difference. And also investment community is challenging. So when I presented this ESG index idea to our own board, the one question came from the board member, which is, do you think this is a good time to do ESG investment because Donald Trump is promoting,
it's a fair question,
resource company? Yeah. So the way I responded to that's a very good question. That's the reason we are promoting ESG. We have a 25 years investment horizon. Whatever happening with the under Trump administration, do you think it's sustainable for 25 years? I really don't think so that way. So ESG gives us a very convenient tool to fight against those kind of short-term policy fluctuation. So I think this is very good. This is a good test of how ESG investment will save investor being affected by these kind of short-term policy deviations. So we also have active managers. I really want them to take advantage of the policy change in the U.S. with respect to the natural resource, these climate change. They can take advantage of it, but 80% of our money is passively managed. We want those people to have more longer view. So I'm really glad that we started promoting ESG before Mr. Trump came into the office and make this, change.
And just to finish up, the sense of you as a pension fund, a large asset owner on the world stage, backing something like the SDGs. What does it mean for you? How can you translate that into the investment you do? It's very very top down wish list of important issues, but
the way we see it is. The company who adopt or agree to SDGs, they can pick one of or some of the 17 goals to make the business opportunity for them. And somebody came up with a very good terminology, which is creating shared value. Meaning, if they make money out of those, pursuing those or solving those goals, they will create a shareholders' value while they are creating social sustainable value too. And for GPIF as an asset owner, when we pursue ESG investment, we will ended up investing into those companies who, use the SDGs as their, business opportunities. So we are just pushing. It's a little bit conceptual, but we are trying to tell the Japanese companies who are now trying to promote ESG, SDGs, feel comfortable. You don't need to pay too much attention to ESG. As far as you are doing well with SDGs, you are likely to be highly evaluated by ESG investors. So that's the way we communicate. And one issue about this industry is there are so many terminologies: responsible investment, the social responsible investment, sustainability investment, SDGs, ESGs. I think everybody should just get rid of ego, and we just agree we are basically talking about same value. This is the time for us to make a big river out of the many, many small streams of initiative you have been working. And I really respect all of your effort for the last 10 years. And sorry, I'm a newcomer, but I'm making a big statement. But I really appreciate and respect all your work for the last 10 years.
Thank you, Hiro. I don't think anyone in this room would think there's any reason to apologize for a newcomer like you to be coming in and speaking so passionately about the subject and about what you're doing as a fund. And it's a real pleasure to that end to actually announce that unfortunately you won't be able to be with us this evening for the RI Awards, but that you have won the RI Award for Innovation and Industry Leadership, Outstanding Individual Contribution. I don't think anyone here listening to you speak would find that surprising right now, because the work that you've been doing in leading the fund since you arrived there has been nothing short of inspirational. And really the judges who awarded the trophy, basically their conclusion was that you're leading from the front, and you absolutely are leading from the front. It's our pleasure to present you with this award in lieu of not being there this evening, and to thank you for all your work. And I think another very well-earned round of applause to you. Hiro, thank you very much indeed for that. Wonderful to have you here and to be able to present you with the award. If you leave it with us, we'll send it over to you in Japan. It's quite heavy, actually, so I think we'll get that sent over to you.